Stand by to launch FanStream Sports.
3, 2, 1. Let's start.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome to FanStream Sports. Nothing but pure sports.
And welcome, everybody, to FanStream Sports, powered by DSP Media. This is the Fighting Irish Daily Blitz, and I'm your host, Rob Thidoff, also known as RPT. You can find me on Twitter at PThidoff. So for episode 89 today, as you can see, it's just not my ugly mug today. I got a guest. My podcast is becoming more and more legitimate. I got my first guest, good friend Greg Schaefer. I think, Greg, we met about, 5 years ago? And Notre Dame ever since.
Yeah, Dempsey's. Get a quick plug in for the Notre Dame Club of Columbus, right? Keep that growing. Yeah, so it's passionate Notre Dame fans here in the Midwest in the Buckeye State. So it's funny how that kind of stuff comes together.
Absolutely. So Greg is from East of the Bend Productions. He's the founder, the CEO, the head honcho, whatever you want to call it. He's the main man for East of the Bend Productions. So, Greg, why don't you give a quick scenario, but a more or less a 101 introduction to East of the Bend Productions?
Yeah, so we're a sports media production team here in Central Ohio. We cover mostly local high school sports. We do cinematic. I know RPT, you're a huge movie guy, so we give that inside look into your local team that not a lot of people get to see, and we make these cinematic highlight videos and tell the story each week. Not just a random highlight or just showing like touchdowns and this and that. We show the good, we show the heartbreaking losses, this and that. We used to be into a whole lot more with podcasting and graphic design and stuff, but it shifted over the last couple of years, just leaning into what people love. And we found that, through trial and error of any small business, you find what people love, and they really love the production side and the cinematics of the videography every week, and seeing their kids in a light that you don't normally see. And like my mom always says, it's like, man, better than a photo album,
Right.
Wish we would have had that when you were a kid. So right now we have Licking Valley High School, Notre Catholic High School. We'll be getting ready for football season. Actually, next week, starting covering 7-on-7. So, but yeah, I appreciate you. Appreciate you having me on, man. It's been a long time, and it's awesome to be on this side of the camera and the microphone for once.
And what's the best way to get a hold of East of the Bend Productions? If someone wants to reach out to you.
Yeah, direct message at East of the Bend on Instagram, eastofthebend@gmail.com. Let us know, have us come out, cover your team, and see your kids and players in a different light that you've never seen before. You can look at our content on YouTube at East of the Bend. Facebook, direct message is probably the best way, or just hit us up by email.
Cool. And we have Greg's logo at the bottom right there. So if you're looking it up online, I don't think anything else is East of the Bend, but isn't there a pizza joint called
East of Chicago? That's where I stole it from. It was actually going to be originally East of Chicago way back when I started podcasting, because you know me, I'm a half the time Bear fan. I'm a Cub fan. And Notre Dame is kind of like Chicago's team. Let's be real. I mean, with all that going on. So I wanted to go East of Chicago, but the crappy pizza joint had it. And they're actually still around. So I went with East of the Bend, and people love it. I honestly am not the biggest fan of the name, because when I started podcasting, I didn't want to be like Notre Dame centric. I mean, I've had you on for shows that aren't even, we had movie podcasts before.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
And so I didn't want to lean too hard into like East or Notre Dame, because I wanted to be able to touch on everything. I did we did like girls basketball podcasts, NFL draft podcasts and stuff. So yeah, I didn't want, because sometimes in the podcast game, if somebody sees like Notre Dame or something Notre Dame related, you know how polarizing this fan Notre Dame is.
It's love or
hate. If they hate them, they're not going to listen to you. And maybe I had something good to say. I doubt it, but
right.
So I didn't want to alienate an entire genre of people, but yeah, people love it, and they still ask to this day, like, oh, what does that mean? And you tell them, like, oh, that's because Newark, Ohio, where I'm from, is east of South Bend.
Right.
So, yeah.
Exactly.
So we leaned into that, and it seemed to work out pretty well.
Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is how it's going to work. We have topics, but I said, hey, Greg, what are your top 5 concerns for Notre Dame for the 2023 season? And then we'll have a podcast and see how close we are with our top 5 concerns. 5 being the least of those top concerns, and then 4, 3, 2, 1, with 1 being the most concerning for the 2023 season. And we wanted to do this before the so-called experts, they call themselves experts, get out their preview shows. So this is probably the first Notre Dame preview show for football for the 2023 season. We want to be the first. Maybe, hopefully it's the best. We'll see. We'll see how these concerns, go throughout the season if these actually become really big concerns, if something happens with these 5 concerns. And Greg and I have not discussed these 5 concerns at all. We want to see, Greg, keep me honest. That is the truth.
Yeah, 100% truth. Yeah, we haven't touched on it. Nope, not a bit. Probably the least prepared podcast I've ever been. So,
yes.
Yeah.
And then after our 5 concerns, we'll go over the schedule. We won't do an in-depth analysis, but say, Navy, do you think that's a win or a loss? We may elaborate a little bit more, but then see what our schedule is or our predictions, how close those are to. Last year for Marcus Freeman's first season, I think we were pretty much
were we around 8-4, 7-5, somewhere in there.
I think you were 8-4. I was 9-3 with a bull win.
Yeah.
So what they do end up 9-4. So
9-4. So we're pretty much right in there.
You're right. It's just the losses that they had.
We're not predicted. No, not a bit. Yeah. Not a bit.
Like Stanford and what was it? Marshall.
Marshall was the one.
But then Clemson, I thought that'd be a loss. And
so did I. Yeah. So I don't know if you go back at that point in time before last year and you tell me you get a Clemson win, but you have to take a Marshall loss. I still don't know if I take it, to be honest.
I still think the Stanford loss is worse than Marshall.
I agree with that. I mean, Marshall came on. We were coming off of Ohio State, big letdown week. And if you look at that roster for Marshall, they had more 5 stars than we did.
Right. Exactly.
Now, granted, they went out the next week and lost to Bowling Green.
Right.
There's that. So
right. So I'll be a gracious host and let you start with your number 5, and then I'll do my number 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So
my number 5, I think, is going to be how Gerard Parker and Sam Hartman gel. Okay. I left it at 5 just because I think Hartman's that good. And you and I's man love for Sam Hartman, that I think he can play through anything. I think this is going to be like an Adam Gase, Peyton Manning situation where it's like, was Gase, Gase got a lot of big jobs after being the OC for Manning, but let's be real. Manning did his thing. He wasn't, he didn't really need an OC. So, but I want to see like how Gerard Parker, if this was Ludwig, this season, my predictions are way different.
Right. Oh, exactly.
But like, it's hands down, like, how does this relationship work? Yeah. And we've seen in the spring game how good Hartman can be.
Looks phenomenal.
But is that because he was going against a porous secondary? I mean, we're hoping that the secondary is good. And I'm going to elaborate. That's a spoiler alert. That's one of my concerns, the secondary. And people are going to be like, what? But we'll get there. But anyhow, like, you're playing against your team. And that's what's such a catch-22 about spring games is it's like, oh, touchdown. Well, wait a minute. Oh, that was bad for our defense. Right. Defense makes a great play. You're like, yeah. And then you're like, oh, wait a minute. That was really bad for our offense.
Right.
So
it's a catch-22.
Absolutely. And, Gerard Parker, this is a Notre Dame-centric hire. This is what we do. We did it with Kelly. He was hiring his homies all along. Now this is that safe hire. This is that safe Notre Dame hire. And it's like, how does this gel? Maybe this is this guy's jumping off point and the opportunity he needed. Because I'm a quasi West Virginia fan because of Mark and because of like Gressos and stuff. So I pay attention to WVU, and it's one state away. But they weren't thrilled with him. But also on the flip side, they didn't have the talent that we have either.
That's true.
So there was no Tobias Merriweathers walking through that door down at West Virginia. So I just want to see how that relationship gels and how they move along. And in crunch time, he is going to have to make a call. It's not going to all be on Sam Hartman. How does he make that call against Ohio State if it's close in the fourth quarter? How does he make that call against Clemson in Death Valley? Yes, Clemson's not the Deshaun Watson Clemson they were, but it's still Death Valley. They still hold that clout. And you know how we are in big games. So.
Oh, absolutely. And I can concur 1,000%. They shit the bed with the Ludwig fiasco. I mean, that was just.
We can do 2 hours on it.
Yeah. I mean, that was, oh, there we go. I thought the camera was going out there a little bit, but no, we're good. But no, that was a Ron Paulus, Jack Swarbrick.
What a disaster.
Yeah. I couldn't.
And there was just so many other, even like, I know he's unproven and, he got the blame because of Brady's poor year, but it's like Byron Leftwich was out there. There was so many names that I don't even, again, going back to Marcus Freeman, and we could do 3 hours on my feelings on him and how that hiring process went. Right. But I feel like that, we didn't kick the tires on anything else. After Ludwig fell through, it was like, who's on staff? Cool, hire him. Got it, done.
Right. I hear you. Okay, so my 5, but here's with my number 5. The more I've talked to some of the so-called experts, just friends in general, Notre Dame people as well, it's not as much of a concern as it was, let's say 2 months ago, but it's still a concern for me, and that's opening up with Navy. Because here's the thing. To me, I found out through the grapevine that we actually do, or Notre Dame that is, practices against the option during their training camp at some point during the season. But I just don't want it to be right before the season. I think that could hurt with the development of a defense, especially a defense with a defensive line. We've lost a lot on the defensive line. The linebackers were horrible last year. In my opinion, they were. I think Al Golden's kind of iffy as a defensive coordinator. Al Washington, I can see why Ohio State fired him. And that's actually going to be one of my points down here as we get further to the number one list. But just opening up with Navy, that team always concerns me regardless. I'm always kind of paranoid before that game. One, we get a lot of injury, not a lot of injuries, but some injuries, some significant injuries after that game, the chop blocks and all that. But the one good thing, I guess, we get it out of the way, first of the season. To me, ideally, it would be week 6 or week 7, which is usually around Veterans Day anyway. And then you have a bye after the Navy game. That would be my ideal situation with Navy. However, we don't have that. It's the first game of the year. We'll get it out of the way. But I just think, we're traveling that week, to another country, which is kind of a concern too. But just to open up with Navy, I just think that could hurt a defense with their development prior to the season.
So it's interesting. You and we usually agree on everything. Typically.
I know, yeah.
We are like plus 90%. I actually disagree on this one. I love it. 50 to 10. I go back to that 50 to 10 game in 2012. It's the best we've ever looked against.
Oh, yeah, I know.
It wasn't close. Ken Niumatalolo's gone. I think that's very beneficial. Even if he was back, it's not the Navy we've played for the last 6 or 7 years. It's just not.
Right. But here's the thing, though. Last year, they were horrible, too, and they almost beat us.
Yeah.
Al Golden looked lost that game. He looked totally lost.
He did. But I just think that, I think getting it out of the way and not having to keep touching on it, you know what I mean? That triple option, because they always said they touched on it all season long. All season long, they at least touch on it. And you get it out of the way, it's done. And I'll give you one more point to this of why I'm more comfortable week 1 is because Tennessee State's the next week.
Right, I had that on my point too. That's the good thing right there.
Could win that game. We're not even talking about. I get it. You want to do the HBCU thing. I love it. That's great. I support it. But this isn't even a good HBCU school.
No, they're horrible.
They're not good. At best, you're looking at 5. I think they were 5-6 or something.
I got it right here. 4-7 last year.
Okay, 4-7 last year. Yeah, this is not. You're not talking about like Jackson State with Deion Sanders or something like that. No, or a Jacksonville State who knocked off Florida State recently. It's like no, this is not a good. Our JV, if you will, team would knock them off.
Right. But it's good to have them after Navy instead of Purdue, like in 2012.
Yep.
Where Tommy Reese had to lead us back to a victory when Everett Golson got hurt. So
I had my hand over my face saying, "Turn over, Tommy's coming in."
Yes.
And then he made me eat my words, which I'm okay with. But
right. So Navy, I say it is a concern, not as much as it was 1 or 2 months ago. But I just think for the development of the defense, that could be a factor.
I can see that.
But here's the thing: what else was the crap? I lost my train of thought there. I think I'm good though. But no, I think I was going to say too. Yeah, at least we Tennessee. What is it? Tennessee State. If you want to say Tennessee Tech, it's Tennessee State.
Yep.
That we have the next week. So okay.
And as a quick side note, if you've never been to a game before and you want to go to a game, this would be the one. Dirt cheap. This is like when Ohio State played Florida A&M. I remember people never been to a game, and it's expensive, right, wrong, or indifferent, or maybe it's just not your vibe to go to a huge game. It's like, hey, Tennessee State, you get the atmosphere. You're going to go home with a win. At least we should. We will podcast for an entire week if we lose to Tennessee State. That would be a good one.
Oh yeah, you can't. God, can you imagine if that would happen?
This game can't even be close. This has to be 35-0 at the end of the first quarter.
That's what I wanted to say. That's where I lost my train of thought. For Navy, we got to get out to a 14-0 lead.
100%.
21-7, because their drives are 6 to 8 minutes, if not longer. And if you leave them around, it's going to be.
And who knows? Maybe it works against me by saying Niumatalolo is gone because he did run the program into the ground by the time he left. And I shouldn't use that. That's pretty harsh. Even I'm not a fan of the guy, but what he did was impressive over that time.
Oh yeah,
nationally relevant. Probably more nationally relevant than Navy's been since like the 40s, really. 40s, 60s, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
So it was impressive. I don't think he ran it into the ground per se. I just think its shelf life was over. It's not sustainable. You can't do it for 30 years. Not in this environment.
But they beat us, 2010, 2016, and then they went down to the wire with Ohio State in the 2014 national title year.
Yep.
And when Tressel was still there, what was that, 2010 maybe?
I think it was 2010. Yeah, that sounds right.
Or 2009.
Yeah.
So even when I remember getting shit from OSU fans saying, "Oh, you always play Navy." But the 2 times they played them, they almost got their ass.
And then do you recall the South Carolina game that was super close a few years back? It was it was like mid 2000s, and I think I was in South Bend, and we went to one of the local pizza places, and it was up, and it was like, oh, look at this, the SEC team all of a sudden is in trouble. So
right,
yeah,
okay. So you're number 4.
Number 4, you touched on it with Al Washington. It's the D line.
Oh wow,
it's the D. The players, I love them. I love the players that are there, but the development. I know I don't have many Ohio State fans that I shouldn't say respect. We're getting into crazy territory now, but you know how they are around here, man. The Ohio State fans don't even like their own fans. Yeah, they don't even like their own fans. And the guys that I trust, that I talked to, they were so thrilled to get rid of Al Washington. Yeah, and it's like, how does that D line develop? I love the players who are there. I love that it was Baptiste that transferred in from Ohio State. I think he's going to be very good. Who else is on the line? His name's escaping me. Bortello. Asafa Mensah, like guys like that.
Howard Cross.
Howard Cross. I really like Riley Mills. I'm loving those guys.
Oh, the kid from West Virginia. His brother played a couple years ago. Real short, stocky. What was he? He played for 5 years. He actually got 5 years in because of COVID.
Yeah, he's a COVID senior.
I forget his brothers. Oh God, why can't I? Heinish's little brother.
Oh yeah.
I hope he's here this year. Yeah, Heinish's brother will be there this year.
So the players are there. It's how do they develop? You know what I mean? It's like we don't have a Larry Johnson on staff who's just phenomenal with the hand fighting and everything that they do to get those guys to the next level. And it's like, how do we get these guys to perform? The bodies are there. It's almost like the Sam Hartman thing. It's like the elite talent is there, in my opinion. It's just now, what do we do with it? And how do we make it progress and take it to another level?
Right. Well, I think too,
number 4.
And not to get ahead of myself here, but his recruiting, he's kind of swung and missed
out right now.
Justin Scott, it looked like it was down to us, Michigan, and Miami of Florida, and Ohio State gets him. I mean, he's been really the recruiting trail, and that goes with Al Golden as well, too. So my number. And
you know what, man? I'm eating a little crow on Al Golden because I liked Golden quite a bit, actually.
I don't know if he wants to be there, to be honest with you. It seems like this is just a setup job for the next job. Weird. Because he's not that, what is he, 56, 57? So
it's
he's
weird.
Still
I'm willing to give him another year, though.
Right.
Yeah. And I think I think he's a good coach. I think he got a raw deal with Miami, to be honest with you.
Oh, yeah.
He was just
I do
too.
Situation.
It was just
he was set up to fail. Yeah, he was set up to fail.
Absolutely.
So anything else with your number 4 here?
Nah, I think we touched on it. And we'll see. The players are there, in my opinion. It's just how do we develop them?
Okay. So my number 4, again, not too much of a concern, but it is a concern. Usually we don't get as much hype, except from our own delusional fans, Notre Dame fans, as we enter the season. But left tackle Joe Alt, to me, they're acting like he's the second coming of Orlando Pace. I'm just hoping that doesn't get to his head or that he's not overrated, because if he's that good, we should be running left a lot this year. Because I remember in the 2020 season, we had a pretty good left side of the offensive line. And Tony Dungy, when he did the Notre Dame games, kept saying, just run left. They can't stop it, especially during that Clemson game, even though we only won by, 1 touchdown at the end. It took us 2 overtimes to beat DJ Uiagalelei. Yeah. But I just think this hype for Joe Alt, I hope it's as advertised. But I'm seeing if a quarterback's not taken with the first pick in the NFL draft, some are projecting him to be the number 1 pick. And I just don't see that right now. I mean,
I agree, man. I do. And I would say, I would take it a step further. I would say this for the entire offensive line, because every preview I read in preparation for this show, because I didn't want to look like a total moron. And I do like going polar opposite of the mainstream media. I love that. But also I didn't want to be like, oh, you're dumb. But everybody's writing the offensive line off as it's good to go. It's good. It's not a concern at all. And I'm like, I don't know what you guys seen to make it that much of a confirmation. You know what I mean?
Right. It's not the Dallas Cowboys of the 1990s.
No. I see the talent and I see the potential. And I absolutely see this as it could be like a Josh Adams type season with our running backs and being able to get the line to that level. But they haven't done it. They haven't done anything that says, oh, yeah, it's going to happen. We're all going based off potential.
Right. But I'm like, Jesus, is this Orlando Pace reincarnate? I mean, I just don't see. Remember, he had the pancake blocks. I don't remember even analysts saying last year he had these great, pancake blocks and stuff like that. Yeah. I just think this hype could be premature, but I'm hoping they're right. So,
well, and Blake Fisher's got to take the next step too. Speaking of guys on the line, I mean, you got Blake Fisher, you got Kristofic, Zeke Corral. I mean, Zeke Corral. Those are the guys that you got to take the next step, and they are good. And on paper, we should be, that should be the least of our concerns. We shouldn't even be really talking about it. But they didn't show it last year until really the bowl game. And the bowl game was basically South Carolina's seconds versus our seconds. When you I rewatched the 12-minute extended highlights. I've rewatched it probably 3 times this week. And that was a fun game. Let's call it what it was. It was a fun game. Should have never been that close. Honestly, we should have kicked the shit out of them.
We should have won by 28 points.
You got guys. They're talking all these stories about these guys who had like 4 catches all season for South Carolina, and they're trading out jersey numbers because the one guy wanted 0 and a senior had, but he's gone. Mayor's gone. For us,
Foskey's gone.
Foskey was gone. I mean, because on paper, like being Notre Dame critical, I kind of wanted to crap on that win a little bit. But then I got thinking, I'm like, well, half our guys weren't there either. So
I know. Well, plus too, Joe Rudolph. We have a new offensive line coach.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and I was never a big Harry Keystan. I think he was better than.
But look at the talent he acquired.
Right? Yeah, exactly. That's
sometimes coaches just get kind of going back to my Gase reference. It's like sometimes you just get lucky, the stars align, and it just works. For whatever reason, it just works.
Yeah, because who was the offense coordinator? I can't. Jeff. What was his name?
Quinn.
Jeff Quinn.
Yeah,
buddy, and
another buddy hire.
And then Dell Alexander, the wide receiver coach. I will say though, Chancey Stuckey. Not to get too off the topic here, but he's been the biggest surprise to me for the offensive or the assistant coaches that Coach Freeman has hired. He's done a really good job, in my opinion.
100%. Yeah, and the kids like him. He seems like he's recruiting well. I mean, obviously that receiver room is stacked. Now we just got to use them.
Right. I mean, it's not Ohio State talent, but it's solid. It's solid.
No, I agree.
So what is your number 3, Greg?
My number 3, and you would think this would not – I'm putting it in the middle. And the reason being is until I see it consistently, we've had it in spot time. Like last year, it was great. Ben Morrison is the man. Everything looked good. I need to see it consistently. So it's the secondary. We've struggled with the secondary for as long as I've been a fan. Yeah, forever. I mean, and now it's considered a strength. So again, going almost like with the offensive line, live up to it now. Come back with that second year. And I know, going back to Kivari Russell, God, we thought he was locked down. We thought that guy was freaking Nnamdi Asomugha. And then he had to sit out that year, come back, and then it just was back to old Notre Dame secondary, one step a little too slow against the elite competition. So basically, not a sophomore slump from Ben Morrison, and other guys stepping up and show us that this is the strength of the team on defense. And it's not just the same old Notre Dame going back to what it was. I mean, if you look at, the strong points, yes, we had probably one of our better secondary seasons in 20 years last year, right? But our competition kind of sucked, to be honest with you. The highs were highs. We talked about this before. The highs of our schedule were high, but the lows were low.
Oh, yeah.
Low. And then we didn't come through in the clutch against teams like
USC.
Marshall. Yeah, or USC.
Yeah.
And we couldn't control Caleb Williams at all. So, I just need to see a lot from guys like Xavier Watts. I need DJ Brown, Cam Hart. I mean, we're looking at a 5th-year senior. All right, let's see what you got. And you got Ramon Henderson back there. All right, let's see what you got. I mean, Clarence Lewis is done, right? Thank God.
No. He's back.
Is he back? Okay, I don't have him on my depth chart. He's back.
I think he has 2 years left, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. So you still got Clarence Lewis there, who's so freaking hit or miss. I mean, there's sometimes I look at that guy and I'm like, I'm not even sure if he should be on a D1 roster.
Right.
And then every now and then he makes a decent play. So again, I love the secondary. I love what we're going into, but I have to see it more than 1 year. I mean, we can't.
You love our coach?
What's that?
Do you love our coach, Mike Mickens, though? Are you a fan of him?
Yeah, I'm a fan. I think that's one of the reasons it's trending in the right direction. But there's been other times we've been trending in the right direction and it just falls apart. So, and I'm not even looking for next season. I'm not even looking for like what last year was. I need a step. I don't want the same secondaries. Last year was nice. We were pretty happy with the secondary. Obviously, we're very excited about Ben Morrison, but I need that next step. I want to see something else.
Let me ask you this. If Lorenzo Styles stays but converts to corner, how do you think that would have went?
Oh, if he would have been willing to do it. So I know several people kind of doing what we do and played some like rec league football with some guys and stuff, and knowing, without giving out too many details, but basically that guy was a corner. I mean, that dude should have been a corner.
That's what I've heard too, yeah.
Personally, he did not want to play corner. He wants to play wide receiver. And he is playing corner at Ohio State, though, right?
Which makes no sense why he would have left.
Makes no sense, unless it's just because I've heard he does want to play with his brother, because his brother's down there, Sonny, who's a freak. But I think it would have worked. I mean, that would have been because everybody wanted it. The only reason he came to Notre Dame, from my understanding, I mean, all the inside people I talked to, is because Brian Kelly was willing to let him play wide receiver. That's the only reason we got him.
Okay. But to me, he was probably taking summer school, so he probably had 1 year left, and he graduates early.
Yeah.
Why not graduate early, play one more year at Notre Dame, and then go to Ohio State?
Yeah, I have no idea. You don't know what goes through these kids' heads, and you know, working with as many kids as I work with, it's like tomorrow's the last day on our planet. We have to make all the decisions today. So trust me, it's that very short, narrow-minded view on everything. So you never know what's going. Even the most mature of kids struggle with that, bigger world perspective. So
I mean, we're older, so we think, that 4 for 40 plan, get that degree. You're set up with connections the rest of your life. They're not thinking that same.
Or even just taking a breath and they think I have to wait 3 months. I'm not going to, maybe you don't graduate right at 22, but you graduate at 23. It's like, it's the end of the world. Take a breath, make a good decision. No, they think all these decisions has to be done in 15 minutes ago.
Right. Oh yeah. So anything else with number 3 there?
No, I think we hit on it pretty well. Again, I'm a believer in the secondary, but I personally need to see some. If the goal is still to win a national title, I need to see something else. If the goal is to win 10 games, do what you're doing, and I'm if that's where we're at, and that's what we're doing.
That's the Brian Kelly system there.
Yeah,
status quo.
We're good to go. It wouldn't even be on my list if I didn't think that our goal remained winning a national title.
Right. Okay. So my number 3 is along your number 5. Jared Parker as our offensive coordinator. So assistant coaches I put here. Assistant coach is Parker. And then I wrote that down 2 or 3 weeks ago as I prepared for this. But after Al Golden and Al Washington screwed up some of the recruiting, and Al Washington, to me, took the defensive line a step back last year with all that talent coming back, I added in there too many Al's here. Mm-hmm. Al Washington as a D-line coach. But here's the thing with Jared Parker. I know he's really an unknown as an offensive coordinator for us coming in, but I think there's so much coming back with all that offense. The way we have a quarterback that could probably get Social Security right now, as old as he is, and Sam Hartman.
Pretty sure he's
a very experienced backfield. The receivers are getting better. An offensive line, we may not think they're elite right now, but they're solid right now. I think we may not see how good or bad he is until year 2, because with that experienced offense, I think a lot of the deficiencies may be masked. His deficiencies, that is, because of the experience on the offense coming back. Do you agree with that?
Oh, yeah. You're echoing everything that I'm saying. It's like you have all those wide receivers that I think is totally untapped potential because of how they were utilized last year. Tobias Merriweather, what did he only have? 1 catch all season?
It's a touchdown, too. It was a touchdown.
Yeah. It was 1 play, 1 touchdown. And then it's like you need to be targeting him 3 times a game. Minimum. Right. I don't care. They tried to say, the old Brian Kelly MO. As much as Kelly left, as he stayed. Because what did we hear with him? He wasn't learning the playbook. I don't care. He's a freak.
Yeah, put him out.
Sit him on a go route. Sit him on a go route and just throw the ball up. That's all the play is.
Or just have 2 or 3 plays he knows and just put him in for that. That's it.
100%. Just make him out-athlete a guy, especially against a Stanford. Come on, man. If we can't beat a Stanford with Turkey Bowl plays, then I don't know what we're doing.
Right. Exactly.
We out recruit them times 100 on every single level, and we have some other dudes, man. I mean, I'm looking at the depth chart right now. It's like Jaden Thomas started to come along. You got Deion Colsey in the 2 deep. Right now they're moving Tyree to slot, which I love because he's better in space. He's better in space. One of the fastest guys on the team.
He's been used horribly the last 3 years. He's been used like shit, pretty much, in my opinion.
And honestly, I think he could have been a great back. I think he could have been one of the next great Notre Dame running backs. I just don't think he was used right. We just acted like we had to get the ball to Logan Diggs. We had to get the ball to Audric Estime. No, have a featured back. Look at the teams that win titles. They have a featured back. It's not, we got to give the carries here. I mean, again, that old Brian Kelly adage of like, well, we got to try to keep everybody happy unless it's somebody he wants in the doghouse for the end of the time.
But back to wide receiver, I do like the freshman, Jaden Greathouse. Mm-hmm. He's going to get a lot of playing time. He looks really good. I mean, really good.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we're stacked as far as that goes. You got Rico Flores, Braylon James. It's a stacked room. I mean, your boy Matt Salerno's in there too. Don't forget about him.
And even tight end. I know Mayer's gone, but tight end, we'll be fine at tight end. We'll be fine at tight end.
Yeah, Matt Salerno's still in the room, remember.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, walk on. But like Jared Parker, I mean, I will say this, even though I'm kind of iffy on him for this first year, and then next year I think we'll see how good or bad he is. From what I've been hearing, he's a great recruiter. And I know that goes only so far, but at least he's doing more than what Al Golden and Al Washington are currently doing on the defensive side of the ball. So he gets props for that. We'll just see how he is this year, and then I just don't think we'll really see that until year 2, in my
100%.
So we'll go with your number 2 concern.
Number 2 concern, I mean, how do we not talk about it with as successful as they were last year? And that's the special teams with Brian Mason. I mean, he did some incredible things with the punt blocking situation.
Outstanding.
I mean, it's some of the best I've ever seen, like going back to Beamer Ball even. Yeah. And not only just did it against bad teams, you did it in impactful moments. You know what I mean? And I think that's the measure of how good a unit is like that. Like, don't talk to me about like Stanford and, Marshall, Navy. Let's talk about how you did against Ohio State. Let's talk about how you did against Clemson's the big one. Those are the types of moments that I need to see. If you're going to tell me a unit's really good, well, don't show me something that's really good against, Maryland Tech. I want to see it against the big boys of the world. But now he's gone. And, okay, now what do we do? Are we still going to run the same schemes with our special teams? Are we, does that all just carry over? Does the guy replacing him, take over and just keep doing the same things? And, can he make those little adjustments that makes these great coaches great to be able to make it work? And then going a step further on special teams, this kicking situation is scary.
I know. I was about to ask you, who is our place kicker this year? I couldn't really find.
Well, we got the kid from Upper Arlington that's going to kick off. And then Spencer Schrader out of USF is going to be the place
he's the
kicker.
Punter, isn't he? The Ben Graham? But isn't the punter Graham? He's from Upper Arlington.
Yeah, I believe so.
Harvard or Princeton.
Yeah, Ben Graham, and then you got Bryce McPherson, and then Bryce McPherson's listed as the 1 right now. This was updated June 16th, so not that long ago.
Yeah, to tell you the truth, I can't remember our kicker last year.
And it was the kid from Arkansas State.
Oh yeah, Groupie. Blake Groupie.
Yep.
Because the year before we had the Helter Skelter kid who was up and down, redheaded kid.
Yes. Oh Lord, how can we forget his name? Yeah, that's terrible.
He could make a 55, damn near 60-yard kick and then miss a chip
Jonathan
shot. Dorr, yeah.
Yeah. He could make a 75-yard kick standing on his head juggling, but he'd miss a 19-yard field goal from the left hash.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That was his style.
Well, the championship game, he missed that was an extra point he missed pretty much.
Yep, pretty much. But I think special teams from top to bottom is a concern going into this season. It's like, we got a guy who I was looking at his stats and I didn't even keep them in my head. They're not good. If you look up Spencer Schrader, it's not terrible, but it's just like, all right, this is just a guy. This is a filling a spot. And so, does he take that next step? Being on the Notre Dame's roster, being the kicker for Notre Dame, how does this pan out? Because honestly, the kicking is actually we've not seen special teams like what we've seen last year in a long time. Most schools don't see that. So I'm fine with punt blocking, all that stuff.
I'd probably say the last time was maybe 2. Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
2002 team.
Yeah, I'm fine with that kind of I'm fine with that kind of stuff taking a step back a little bit because what we seen was just wild, right? But the biggest concern and what you have to have is a kicker who can consistently make from 30 to 45. Forget 49, forget 50. I need 3 points, 30 to 45 every single time. Maybe one flub up. But outside of that, I need you to go 19 of 20 on the season. And that's more important to me.
And I'm trying to think I know Justin Yoon was pretty good. He has the most points ever at Notre Dame.
Brenza was good.
Brenza was good. But I'm just trying to think like a lockdown kicker. I mean, I may have to go back to, Craig. Remember Craig Hendrick? That was he was a punter and place kicker. And he played in the NFL for a while too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I think it's just more important. I get it. There's impact. I got a punt block for a return for a touchdown. I mean, that is impactful on multiple directions.
Right.
Especially in a big game. But I think it's more impactful that every time that we get inside the 28, it's 3 points and we know it. I think that's more important.
Yeah, or just for me, let's just score touchdowns every single time.
I'd love it. I'd love it, right? Yeah, I'd love to be Alabama, right?
We got to take advantage of every opportunity. When you're inside that 20, touchdowns and not field goals.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, but there is something special about having a kicker. Like, I always go back to the Ohio State kicker.
Mike Nugent.
I mean, that was some of the most – I'm not a Buckeye fan by any stretch of the imagination, but good night. He was so good. What a weapon. What a weapon to know. I mean, you remember the Marshall game they should have lost way back? And it's like, what a weapon to know that I'm trotting this guy out from 55, and anything under 58, we're winning.
Right.
It's like, God, what a weapon.
It's just so amazing, though. Once they lose that leg, though, they go from so good just to shit.
Yeah, and the yips are real. I mean, it couldn't be more real at that position.
And I know age kind of plays a factor, but I remember Morton Anderson in the NFL. Wasn't he mid-40s?
Yeah, something like that.
John Carney, a Notre Dame grad. I think he was in his early 40s to mid-40s before he retired.
I think the power stays. I think the problem is the accuracy. I think after a while, the muscles change, and what you used to just kick mindlessly, all of a sudden it's now like, I don't know where it's going.
Right.
It's like a 99-mile-an-hour pitcher. That's fantastic. Do you have any idea where it's going? Maybe not.
What infuriated me during the Holtz days, he wouldn't even offer a scholarship for a kicker. He would just take him off the soccer team.
Right.
Or take a walk-on. And to me, I mean, a kicker can win a game for you. You got to find him. Man. You got to find him.
You remember like the Hunter Smith days when it was like extra points were an adventure?
Yeah.
I mean, you're knuckling extra points. I mean, those late 90s kickers were
awful.
There were some interesting times, that's for sure.
Awful. So anything with your number 2 concern anymore?
No, you're good, man.
Okay. So my number 2 is the schedule. To me, 2021 was really easy. Cincinnati was probably our toughest team, and we should have won that game, but we shit the bed. Brian Kelly, I think, kind of shit the bed on that one. 2022 with Ohio State last year, a little bit tougher. USC was a tougher opponent, but we found out they were all offense and not anything with their defense. But I have it right here. This is probably the most analysis I have for my talking points here. But of our 12 opponents, 8 last year. I know that's last year, but you have to base it on something. And with the transfer portal and everything too, they may be worse, they may be better, but I got to base it off of something. So I'm basing off of last year's records. And of the other 4 opponents, so 8 have winning records, 4 have losing records. 3 have at least 11 wins, 2 have at least 9 wins, and then 3 with at least 8 wins. So the big 3, OSU, USC, and Clemson, they had the 11 wins. But here's the thing, too. Over those 8-win teams, so you have NC State. That game scares the hell out of me
You took literally, me and you are the same brain today. You literally took the words out of my mouth. Scares me to death.
Because that's the 3rd game. That's at NC State. They were 8-5 last year. And then you got a Duke team, our former coach Mike Elko, who turned the defense around in 2017.
That's going to be a good team this year.
They were 9-4 last year. Louisville, that's a way that they're 8-5. And then Wake Forest, they're 8-5, but we got their quarterback now too.
If we cannot beat Wake Forest with their quarterback, I quit. I'm done.
And it's at home too.
I'm going to become like a freaking Western Michigan fan where there's no expectations.
Right. But I know on paper things can be misleading, but I had to base it off of something. 8 of those opponents have winning records. The losing teams, so Tennessee State, that's a scratch there, so don't even mention them. Central Michigan's 4-8, so who cares? Who else? Stanford, maybe they get better. They were 3-9. And who else had a losing record last year? Central. Navy. Navy was 4-8. We got them the first of the year. But those big 3, That I haven't seen probably a big three on Notre Dame's schedule like that before. And I know two of those are at home, OSU and USC, and then at Clemson. But to me, the schedule is just so much tougher this year, at least paper-wise, than the last 2 years. Because I tell you what, that 2021 season, they just had, I don't know what it was, whether Brian Kelly had just kind of checked out at that point. But that team really easily could have went undefeated or could have went 7-5 too. With that schedule.
Oh, you look at the schedule. I just brought the schedule up from that year. And, I mean, USC was not good that year. I mean, they were average at best. I mean, outside Wisconsin, we got all, like, hyped about that win. But let's be real. They were fine, average at best that year, the neutral site
And they
game.
just imploded in the fourth quarter. It made that.
Yeah, I mean, that was a close game. Game
we were
close.
trailing in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, that was
until Tyree.
I don't know if I've kind of not to get too far off track, but that particular game, I don't know if I've ever been a part of a Notre Dame game on the right side of that, where it's close, and then all of a sudden the game's a blowout. I'm not sure that I've ever been a part of one of those.
I don't either.
But going down the stretch, I mean, some of those games, that was pitiful. Everybody was talking about how good we are and this and that. I'm like, Navy, crap. Virginia, crap. Georgia Tech was horrendous.
Yes.
Stanford was horrendous. I mean, there was nothing that gave me any warm and touchy feelies about that stretch where we were dominating, you know. And
Cincinnati, we just
Cincinnati proved their worth, though. They looked good against a very good Bama, and I'll say that I don't. We should have won. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. We should have won that game hands down. But they proved that this is a good ass team. That's for sure.
Right. But that's going to be, to me, a big three. I don't think I've seen that in a while. I'd have to go back to maybe the Lou Holtz days, or even, God, I mean, I didn't look year by year, but I just, for a big three like that, and I still think of those big three. I know USC has the returning Heisman Trophy winner. I think Clemson's going to be better, and that is at Clemson too, and they're tough to beat at home. But to me, it's still, even though CJ Stroud's not there, OSU is the team to beat on that schedule this year. You got to win that game.
That's a generational win for all of us. That's for sure. And I'll throw one more caveat at you about the schedule is you got to look the last, if let's take the last 2 years, because I don't like going 10 years because none of those guys are on the team. And the guys that are on the team weren't, didn't even know they were going to Notre Dame. So let's go the last 2 years. Talking about environments, we went to Florida State and Georgia Tech. And I think the luster's off of Georgia Tech, or Virginia Tech, I'm sorry. The luster's off Virginia Tech's environment at this point because they're just – the environment's great, but the team's not good to threaten anything. It's all bells and whistles, and then it's like, oh, never mind. It's like a chandelier in a haunted house. Yeah. So that's it. As far as road trips, that is it. And the only reason Florida State's atmosphere was wild is because it was week one. Okay? That's it in one whole season. Then you go back to last year, Ohio State. There's no other intimidating. I know USC had the Heisman Trophy winner, and it's USC, but let's be real. That's a sleepy environment out there, no matter how good they are, unless you go clear back to the Snoop days. So now there's not even any like trapped environments until this year. And I know we'll go over our win-loss record, but NC State is really pumping like a lot of financial backing behind football. They love their football right now. They want to be a football school, and it's in an interesting time. So okay, you got that going. Then, Duke is not the environment itself, but you got another road game against a good team. Next week, you're going down to Louisville. Then you have to go to Death Valley. That's a lot of like sneaky, interesting road trips that we haven't had in a long time.
No. And you think Duke, basketball school, but Mike Elko, he's a hell of a coach. He left to go to A&M.
This is going to be an exciting.
And then he came to Duke.
This will be an exciting year.
So, the ACC may not be as bad as we think this year,
Yeah, let's hope not, because I'm tired of hearing about the SEC.
Right. But again, here's the thing, 8 winning records and then 4 losing records on our schedule. So that's my number 2 concern for 2023. So Greg, drum roll, please, your number 1 concern for the 2023.
If anybody knows me, this shouldn't even be, this isn't even a question. And these are fighting words for some people right now. And it's the evolution of Marcus Freeman. I wasn't a fan. I fought it for the longest time, but guess what? Now we don't have a choice. I'm just a big pain in the ass, and I can finally be called out as not a true fan if I'm still holding this grudge about how it all went down and how he became the coach. Now, a little caveat to that, because people that don't know me, I liked the guy if he came in 2024. It wasn't the right time. I didn't feel any of that. But guess what? All that's done because we're here now. And you got to cheer for the guy. And I want to see how much does he start. I mean, he started last year looking like he knew where to actually stand. I mean, that's where my thing was. Oklahoma State, going back to that guy didn't know where to stand on the sideline. And he's lying to you if he said that he did. So he's taken a little more control of the team. Is he going to take back a little bit more control as far as play calling? I mean, Tommy Reed's letting Jack Cohn throw the ball more times in that one game than in his entire career. You're the head coach.
Right.
Call him up. We're running the ball. I don't care what it is.
Yeah.
It is your offense, but I need a run out of your playbook.
Be the head coach.
Control. Yes, be the head coach. Take more control of the team. Be that guy. Don't just be all this glitz and glamour, because honestly, we could be a powerhouse with him because he speaks to this generation of recruits in the Twitter era, I like to call. He has the looks. He's got the swagger. He's a young guy. He gets all of it.
Got the energy.
He has the energy. He still works out. Like he looks like he could still play. He actually played, and that goes a long way with some of these kids. Did you play, or did you know what we're going through? And he can identify with a lot of things. He can get into certain homes of because he played at Ohio State, so he can get into certain homes and understand the recruiting on this side and the recruiting from a Notre Dame perspective, which is a little more difficult. All the making is there for us to be back where we were in like the 70s and 80s, but I've been so critical of this hire, and I'm finally on board, and I'm a Marcus Freeman 100% supporter. For one, we don't have a choice. Again,
right.
I am not rooting for his defeat, but I need to see where do we go. Be the guy. Don't be 8-4. Don't be Brian. I don't even want you to be 10-2. Like this year, you need to get a statement win we're not supposed to get, or 2,
or 3.
Yeah, or 3. 3, we're playing for a national title.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll talk about it here in a little bit. I don't see that, but I need to see something. There were certain games last year, like that USC game. We didn't look like we were, by week 12, you should be looking like about what you'll look like next year, being this year coming up. We didn't look like it. We looked like we took 10 steps back. We were fine, and all of a sudden USC happened, and it's like, where was that Clemson team at?
Right. What gets me too, I mean, I'm still supporting him 100%, but he's from a defensive background, obviously. He was our D coordinator. He did great things at Cincinnati. But to me, I feel like our defense is regressing, and our offense, hopefully this year, will be even better than it was at the end of last year. It kind of reminds me of, remember Brian Billick? He was part of that 98 Minnesota Vikings team, offensive coordinator for that. I mean, just numbers out of this world for that team that probably should have won the Super Bowl. Then goes to the Ravens, wins the Super Bowl there. But since when he went to the Ravens, and even since now, the Ravens are known for their defense. And it's kind of a weird thing. You hired a guy for the offense. He comes here. The defense is outstanding. Even after they fired him, they've still been known for their defense. Mm-hmm. Is Notre Dame going to be that same thing with Marcus Freeman? Are we going to be an offensive machine, but the defense is going to be kind of bend but don't break?
That goes back to why, again, I don't want to keep reliving this whole where I was mentally last year, but this goes back to why it probably wasn't the right choice in the first place, is because he doesn't know what he is. Because he's trying to figure it out, we're trying to figure it out, because he didn't have long enough to coach. If he would have been here in 2024 under Brian Kelly for a couple more years, because we always knew this was the plan. Yeah,
we kind of figured he was going to be the coach at some point.
He was going to be the coach at some point. Love it. Unless he went somewhere else because, maybe Kelly wins a national title and then all of a sudden. But we also knew anybody who knew literally anybody minutely on the inside knew that the relationship between Notre Dame and Brian Kelly was So it was going to happen. It's just how it happened. And also that we didn't kick the tires on anybody else. I mean, I told you that before. I'm a big Stoops guy. I mean, not everybody is, but give him a call. Make him say no. Make him say no. You call John Harbaugh's kid is on the lacrosse team. Give him a call. Just give him a call. And if he says, laughs at you, okay, fine. You're in the same position you were. But I just never felt like that we tried. And now we got a guy who's learning on the job at one of the most polarizing institutions in the country.
Right. Well, I will say he got a little bit better with press conferences. I know that's minimal, but early in the year when we were losing to Marshall, it looked like he lost his puppy.
Oh,
and he just looked so depressed. I'm like, get this guy a happy pill or something.
Well, they talk, my real job's being a nurse, and they talk about our nonverbals. In nursing school, they teach you all about your nonverbals and communication. And I'm telling you, his nonverbals sucked.
Yeah. And I was just like, man, this guy needs something to pep him up because God knows where this is going to lead to. But I will say, let me ask you this. If he, this year, if it gets, whether it's a national title or a New Year's Six Bowl, or if we keep improving, whatever, what do you think was the turning point for Marcus Freeman? I think it would be, even though we lost the USC game, I would say the loss to Stanford. I think at that point he said, hey, I got to take more control than what I'm doing. I've been giving Tommy Rees too much control.
Yeah.
I'm probably giving Al Golden too much control. What would you think is the game if we continue to progress this year? To me, I think it's the Stanford loss because that was as bad as it could get.
The Stanford loss, yes, but we should. I mean, who knows where we were? I mean, we all thought UNLV was a slam dunk the next week, but we also lost to Stanford and Marshall.
Yeah.
I think the way we went up to the Carrier Dome and beat Syracuse, because Syracuse was pretty hyped up. We had to go on the road, not very intimidating environment. I definitely think that would probably be the moment where these kids said, aha, we've got it. We can do something big. And it showed because then the next week they go out and beat Clemson. I think that would probably be because I actually felt more impactful by the Marshall loss than I did Stanford. Stanford to me feels like it didn't even happen.
Yeah.
Like Stanford feels like it didn't even happen. I feel like that you could even go back to that Marshall game where, like you said, he was somber, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then we go out and we beat Cal, as ugly as it was. But then we beat a very good North Carolina team. And then we beat BYU in the Shamrock Series game. And that's when I thought, like, okay, it just needed to burn. Yeah. It needed to burn all the way to the ground in order to build back up. But then Stanford happened, and it's like, now what the hell? Like, what is this? We don't even know what this team is at this point.
Yeah.
You're beating Stanford with one of my favorite not even quarterbacks, one of my favorite non-Notre Dame players in Drake May.
Yeah.
And, you're beating them up, and you outscored him. Every time he'd throw up a touchdown, we'd throw up two.
You did that with Drew Pine. You did that with Drew Pine, too.
And did it with Drew Pine, no less. Then you beat BYU, and then all this Stanford thing just comes out of nowhere. So you ask an interesting question that I'm not even sure I have a good opinion about of where the turning point was, because I would have been with you with the Marshall loss, but then you have to account that Stanford actually happened. So
that's just a weird game, just a really weird game.
That Stanford game is like so weird. And that
was coming off a huge win, the Shamrock Series, I believe. Yeah. And they just they didn't want to be there at all.
No, they act like they had no energy. And that's what I'm talking about Freeman is like, yes, we started to pick up some energy, but it has to be every night. It has to be every single game. Yep. And it can't just be Shamrock Series. This is awesome. Vegas. We're going against Drake May. Yeah, no, dominant. And not even just, we'd have kicked a field goal, we win against Stanford, 17-16. Yeah. That's even unacceptable.
Yeah, that's like really a loss.
I mean, it really is. I mean, sometimes losses, or wins feel almost worse sometimes when they're like that.
Yeah. Okay, so for my number one is deals with our man crush, Sam Hartman. So Sam Hartman, if he gets hurt, we can't have that. To me, it's going to be like last year again, because I will say I do like Steve Angeli better than Tyler Buckner and Drew Pine, but he hasn't taken a real snap at all. So that's a concern. Kenny Minchie's too young, but he's better than Ron Paulus III, who's no longer on the team.
Right.
But to me, Sam Hartman, if he gets hurt, I mean, we can't just do what we did last year and rely on, because that's the thing. We were so limited. That's the thing, too. I know there was a lot of ups and downs, and some things were just like, WTF, what's going on? But I think 80 to 90%, well, let's maybe even say 75% to make it flat there, was because of the quarterback situation. Mm-hmm. We were so limited, especially with Drew Pine. Tyler Buckner, you could, run a little bit more, but his decision-making was
it wasn't the Buckner I thought. But I told people, knowing night school football as well as I do, that La Jolla area is terrible. Yeah. I know what his film looked like. And he looked like Reggie Bush at quarterback on film. Yeah, that film was some of the most amazing high school film I've watched. But when you know who the opponents are, La Jolla is not known for football at all.
And he can't stay healthy. At least he couldn't at Notre Dame. And it just really, I know Tommy Rees went to Notre Dame or to Alabama. Why would Nick Saban want him as a quarterback? I don't.
These decisions are so baffling to me. And I have no idea. I mean, I can't imagine he's that desperate. So these coaches have egos. So he must see something. He must see. That's why quarterbacks float around the NFL for 10 years that are terrible, because there's always a coach out there that, I think I'm the one to fix them. I'm the one to be able to fix them.
Or is it that Alabama's quarterback room is that bad too?
I've heard it's that bad because I heard that spring game. I know the score of it. I guess it was super low, and I guess it was horrendous offensively.
Yeah.
So,
and I could be wrong. I mean, but I think both Buckner and Reese are in for a rude awakening with Saban. I mean, I think they thought Kelly was bad getting in their face.
It's a different world, and he's got the clout to go with it too. I'm not a big fan of like guys flipping tables and stuff like that. I think there's a time and a place, but and I'm saying it's acceptable, but it's a little different when this coach over here, he's fine, he's an average coach, and he wants to carry himself like an ass. But over here, it's different when that guy's got all those titles and might be considered the greatest coach of all time. Good luck.
Right. And he's getting up. Maybe he's losing it a little too. Who knows?
Who knows? Maybe that's it.
How old is he? He's probably early 70s? Or
he's got to be in his 70s, I would say. Yeah.
I mean, he looks fine. I mean, but mind's a different thing too. So,
and they still got that Alabama allure to them. I mean, when you see Alabama, I know they're not the teams that they were, but they're still nasty. That's for he's 71.
Okay, 71. But I can't say it. I mean, even before I wrote down this list, number one was going to be Sam Hartman's health, because we cannot go through another season. Now, if we had a great backup, and maybe Steve Angeli will be a great backup, I just don't know. And I don't want to go through the unknowns again this year as last year.
It's a far drop, because at least you knew you were getting kind of a similar guy. Pine to Buckner, that room, it's pretty solid. I mean, the Hartman to Angeli drop-off is incredible.
Right.
I mean, it's so big. And they didn't do themselves any favors by not letting him have any time. Like against UNLV.
He took it.
Yeah, we took it.
I was at that game.
They motioned him out too.
And they
brought in the tight end for that sneak. And it's like, you did him no favors. None in his development. Now look where we're at.
And let's say then he gets hurt, and then Minchie, that's a 6-6 season at best. If the injury happens early in the year, but you have got to protect him
at all costs.
I mean, it's just.
I almost put Hartman on here, but my man love for him decided that I wasn't going to. But one of my concerns to kind of build on your Hartman at 1 is, does he even fit our system against the teams we play? It worked just fine against our guys. Going back to that whole spring game, you're happy, and then you're like, oh, yeah, it happened against our guys. And we're not even going to see it till NC State. It's going to take 3 weeks.
Oh, yeah.
He's going to torch Navy. He's going to torch Tennessee State. He might not even be in the game in the second half. In fact,
That's what I hope. I
hope we're running the most vanilla plays possible to not show much. But then when NC State does happen, how does he react? Because he's been known to have a game or two where he just doesn't – he's colorblind and throws to the wrong team.
Right. But I just can't say it enough. Sam Hartman's health, Sam Hartman's health, Sam Hartman's health.
You nailed it, man.
So we didn't match on everything, but pretty much I'd say about 50, 60%?
Yeah, definitely.
Pretty there. So anything else with your top concerns or anything before we get into the schedule?
Nope. Let's dive into it.
Okay. So we start out actually week 0 this year with Navy.
Thank God that game's not at 10 a.m., 2:30.
And that's the thing is too, I realize that's why we have the 2 buys this year, is because we're starting out week 0. It's like, why the hell do we have 2 buys? That's the reason why. So August 26th in Ireland, it's considered a home game, but it's really not. Well, it will be with our fans, but to me, that's a win. That's a win.
I don't think it's close. I mean, I'll take it a step further as we go down, and I'll give you. I think it should be a 28-point spread, easy.
I think I'll say probably about a 42-10, maybe.
Yeah, it should be somewhere in there. If this season's going to be special, it's not close by the halftime.
Okay. Tennessee State home on September the 2nd. That's a win.
What's the final score? Yes, that's the final score. Yeah, it's whatever we want it to be. It should be. At least that's how it should roll.
And it should be over by midway through the second quarter, hopefully. Okay. This one's going to be September the 9th away at NC State.
So this game's at noon, and I like that a lot. Keeping this out of the nightcap. I mean, I think, honestly, I'm showing my Sam Hartman love here. I think it's 34-17, relatively comfortable win. There'll be a few touchy moments, but we ultimately run away with it. If this was at night, I might say pass on my answer until next month.
Right. I'm going to say a win too. I think it's going to start out a little shaky probably with the crowd, but then we got better athletes than them. If we execute, we shouldn't have an issue with them.
Yep, no doubt.
But I'm still scared as hell with that game.
Yeah, I definitely. If you told me we lose it after this crappy opening to the season, I'd say yeah. Say yeah, because NC State's not really having much of a start either. They only play one game before us, and they play UConn. So, I mean, their season's essentially starting like ours. So I feel good about it. I think
this is pretty much just a post 1993 type of game we lose.
Yeah.
Ever since I was going to say David Gordon Green. No, that's the guy that kind of made the Halloween series, the new Halloween series, average at best. But David Gordon hit that field goal for us to lose to or get upset by Boston College.
Yeah.
Ever since that, I know we won the Cotton Bowl a couple weeks later, but those are the games we typically have lost. Find a way to lose. Not all the time, but sometimes. And then at home, what is this? September the 16th, Central Michigan. That's a win.
Yeah. Again, a huge win. And you know what? These should be, I used to call these get right games. 3 of these first 4, you do everything, you check boxes and you outmatch guys. You find what's working. You take some risk that if Central Michigan picks off a ball late in the third quarter, you should be up like 25, 28 points. You should take some risks that you might not normally take, because then you can find certain things. And that's what you do against Tennessee State. That's hopefully what you can do against Navy and Central Michigan is, get right, find some things that are like, okay, we don't touch that again. But we didn't find that out against Ohio State. We found out against Central Michigan. So
and further, get Angeli in the game early.
Yes.
Get some experience and those talented freshmen, especially at wide receiver.
And get Hartman out of harm's way.
Yeah, and if they could be playing all right. I think Greathouse is going to – I don't think he's going to start, but he's going to get a lot of snaps.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, Flores, that may be a different story, but get them involved is what I'm trying to say. Okay, 100%. Here's the first big first big one of the year, of the big 3. Ohio State night game, the so-called green out game is what I'm hearing too.
Yeah, good luck.
September the 23rd. But I think we're going to see a lot of scarlet and gray there because Notre Dame tends to sell their tickets, sadly. What do you have for this one?
It's a loss. I'll be honest, if Andy Ludwig's there, I'd say it's a win. I was very, very confident with Sam Hartman. I don't think we have the depth. I mean, and Marvin Harrison is a freak. And Travion Henderson actually concerns me the most.
Yeah.
More than Marvin Harrison. You could double up Marvin Harrison and maybe shut him down to a degree.
Yeah. And I said in my previous, they remind me of Alabama 2020 right now.
They look nasty.
They have just so much talent around the quarterback, which will be, God, I forgot his name already. Kyle McCord. To me, he's the
he's why everybody's nervous, but I'm like, you know what? Look at what Bama did with like John Parker Wilson.
Well, no, I'm just saying he's the Mac Jones. I finally figured I had it. He's the Mac Jones of 2020 for Ohio State in 2023, where Najee Harris is Travion Henderson, and then you got Devontae Smith as Harrison Jr.
Yeah.
And their defense just has to be good enough. That's all they have to do. And I think they could win a title.
100%. As much as I hate to say it, especially living here, it makes it unbearable. But it's
to me, I think we have a better chance than last year.
Oh, I was predicting 54-14 last year. I mean, shoot, I think we have a shot to win.
Yeah,
I think that's realistic. I just don't think it happens.
Me too. But for my thing, I got to see it. I haven't seen it in the 5 tries. What are we, 2-5 against Ohio State?
2-5, and our 2 wins long before you and I.
Well, we're 0-5 actually. 0-5 since we've been alive.
Yeah,
We've never seen them beat Ohio State, and until I see it, I'm not going to pick them. So yeah, I got a loss here too.
Yep, 100%. I see a win though. Like last year, I said no chance. This year, I actually think we win. If I passed out and woke up the next morning and you said, Greg, we won, and maybe even won by 10, I would be like, yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. It's just, using my brain. Yeah, we don't win.
Yeah, but same here. It's just I haven't seen it yet. I got to see it to actually believe it. So
yep.
And then following week away at Duke, this is going to be a tricky game, especially if you're coming off a loss.
Yep.
That could be
coming off a win.
Coming off a win too, yeah. I could see this being a loss, but I'm going to say a win for this.
I'm saying a win, but I think it's tricky. I actually think this game's closer than NC State. But I'm scared of NC State, but I think ultimately we take over, win the day. Duke could be a little dicey. Could be that it's 14-14, or I think it's a little higher than that. Let's say 28-28 and we got the ball last, and we got to go down and win the game, or something weird like that.
Okay. And then we go away again on 10-7 against Louisville.
I think it's a win.
That's a win. It may be a little close to start, but I'm saying a win.
And both of these games will probably be at night. This is going to be the Super Bowl for like Duke and Louisville.
Right.
I'm going through Duke's schedule right now. Well, they do host Clemson too, so they have us and Clemson. So yeah, they're going to turn it up for both of those games.
So then the next of the big three opponents, home against USC. That's a night game. Do we got a bye? No, we don't even have a bye. No. So yeah, okay.
Our buys are weird too.
The bye's after the USC game. Yeah, I thought we had a bye before that, but no, we don't. 10-14, home against USC. Who do you got?
Unfortunately, I just don't think we're going to close the gap on USC this year. I know they lost a lot, but they also, they've reloaded. I think we can win. I'm more confident in this game than Ohio State because it's at Notre Dame. It's that October Notre Dame game that we typically find a way. I don't know, man. I think when we get closer to season, I can see myself talking myself out of a loss here. But again, like you said, I got to see it from this staff, and I got to see what we even are and how we utilize our talent. So as of this moment, I'm saying it's a loss.
I want to say a win, even though I could see us losing as well. But I just think the way we lost to USC last year, I know some of those players aren't on the team this year, but I think that's going to be some sort of a motivation, especially to stop Caleb Williams. And then he painted his fingernails and all that. Just some bulletin board material. I know that only goes so far, but I see us winning this game.
Yeah, like I said, I think the closer we get to season, I can 100% see myself say, you know what, I think we do win. I'm way, way more 50-50 on this than I am Ohio State. But, I don't know. Right now, I just don't – it doesn't feel like what I seen last year. And, again, Sam Hartman should make all the difference. What I seen in that game last year left me no indication that USC that's pretty much the same team that we beat them.
Okay. Then we have a bye 10-21, and then home against Pitt on October the 28th, who were 9-4 last. Yeah, that's got to be a win. I mean, so that's a win-win. I'm keeping so then we go at Clemson on November the 4th. They got, what's their quarterback? Is it Klubiak or Klublik or something like that?
Klubik, I think, yeah.
He's better than DJ Uiagalelei, but he's not Trevor Lawrence either. But that's a hostile environment.
They're going to put it at night too.
Exactly. And I got this as a loss.
I got it as a win because I do not think I think Clemson's trending downward. I don't think they're of the same echelon as Bama, and it's Cade Klubnik, by the way. Cole Klubnik, Cade Klubnik, whatever, same thing.
Starts with a K. So
it's that. Actually, it doesn't start with a K. No, it starts with
I just think this is I know I can't base off everything off the past, but another one of those games, prime time.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I just Dabo lost Venables. It's not the Clemson that was competing for national titles.
I agree.
And I think we can go down there, and I think we can get this one. And if we lose to SC and Ohio State and we get this one, and if we get this one comfortably, it's going to be one of them WTF. Are you serious? Did we really just do this? Especially if Clemson's good. If they turn out to be really good this year, that's going to be even more frustrating.
Right. Oh, I know. So then then we have another bye. That's our second bye, 11-11. And then Wake Forest at home, I got to think that's a win.
I got to think that's whatever we want. I mean, to me, that looks like just a one step higher than your Central Michigan game of the year.
And then we close it out Thanksgiving weekend, November the 25th at Stanford. I know he lost to him last year. Maybe they're a little bit better this year. They got a new coach. David Shaw's gone. But I say that's a win.
That's got to be a win to close out the year. And, who knows? Hopefully we're getting ready for a playoff appearance. But we'll see. And that's always a tough trip. I always feel tougher when there's something bigger on the line.
Right. So we pretty much agree.
I think we're both, 10-2?
10-2. You have us. We both have us losing to OSU. I say winning against USC, you say losing, and then Clemson, I have a loss, you have a win. So pretty much, so let's say we go to a New Year's Six Bowl. To me, we eventually have to win one of those. And I think if we're 10-2,
we should get one.
We should get one. And I say we win a New Year's Six Bowl.
I think we do too. Yeah, especially we don't have much attrition of guys that might sit out. Now, the caveat to that would be if Sam Hartman just balls out, even though we're 10-2, does he play?
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah.
It's a good point.
We might have Angeli, Minchie. I don't think he would. If he looks good enough, if he takes us to 10-2, he has all the measurables. He's not playing in a New Year's Six Bowl.
Well, where do you think he'd go in the draft? I don't.
It just depends on how he looks. I mean, he's a smart guy. He obviously, if he fits that mold and some team falls in love with him, he could easily be a first rounder.
Yeah.
But I think that's why he didn't go, because I don't think they've seen it yet, what they need to see, because that was a very specific system down there, the way they ran it. Okay. So, because it was amazing that he even took this COVID year, but it benefited us. So we'll take it.
Oh, me too. I think he was the best transfer we could get. I'm trying to think of any other transfers that happened last year. I thought the NC State quarterback was pretty good, but he was constantly hurt. What was that guy's name? I
can't remember his name, but I know who you're talking about.
But really good arm. Yep. So let me ask you this final question here. The so-called, Notre Dame fan base, some of the delusional fan base, some of the other podcasters who I will not name, they always have this term, BK PTSD, because all those games that we get humiliated against, prime time, the so-called, what I said, the NC State type game that we typically lose. But to me, yes, he did shit the bed in some of the big moments. Let's just put it that way. A lot of the big moments, almost 100% of the big moments. But to me, it's what I said earlier. It's post-1993, David Gordon hitting that field goal, PTSD to me. I don't think Brian Kelly has anything to do.
We've been going through this since I can remember. I mean, my first full season of it should have been an indication that this wasn't for me. My first full season of watching Notre Dame football that I remember is 93. So that should tell you. Right. I was a spotty, I was 6 years old in 92. So I liked the team. And, I remember that was the tie Michigan game was what really brought me in. I didn't watch every week until 93.
Right.
When I really started consistently this is my team. That's just who I'm following, blah, 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 blah. And obviously more so into 94, 95 when Paulus and Jarius Jackson to this day is one of my favorite players, just because that was when I really started getting cognitive about learning football and playing the game and stuff like that. So, but we've been doing this since forever. I mean, you look back at that 98 team when we knocked off Tom Brady in Michigan.
Yeah.
And then we lose to Michigan State. And we got torched by Michigan State the next week. Yeah. 45-23 or something like that. So we've been doing this since
then we were 10-1 or 9-1 going into USC. But then Arnaz, who was Jerry Jackson got hurt. So they had to go with Battle and Eric Chappelle to platoon during the USC game. We lost 10-0. And then we lost the bowl to Oregon State that year. That was with TJ Hushmanzada and Chad
Or was
Scott.
That the Pat Dillingham year?
Remember? Dillingham was 2002.
2002. Yeah, that's right. Okay. But did we get beat by Oregon State that year too?
No, we got beat by Phillip Rivers in the.
Oh, that's right. The Gator Bowl.
Gator Bowl.
Yeah, that's right.
Gator Bowl. Well, just whenever I hear that term, I just get infuriated because it's not. I'm not friends with Brian Kelly. I've always told you I wouldn't trust him if he told me the time. Similar to Urban Meyer.
Yeah.
But to me, it's okay. After that 93, Luke Holtz was still the coach for 94, 95, 96. Yep. He was losing those games. Yep. Obviously.
And we were pretty bad in those years, too, if you remember. The last few Holtz years were not good.
Yeah. Bob Davie continued the trend.
Yeah.
Had George O'Leary not lied on his resume, he probably would have continued the trend.
Greatest question in all of college football. Yes. If he was – because it turned out to be a pretty good coach still.
Yeah.
Obviously, he showed it at Georgia Tech, then he goes to UCF. Yeah. It's like if he doesn't do that, does Notre Dame – it doesn't get better earlier. Who knows?
Yeah, I think it's probably 10-2 at best, 9-3, maybe 11-1. But then Tyrone Willingham, he was another culprit. Charlie White.
He was a better recruiter. I mean, he was definitely a better – O'Leary was a good recruiter. I mean, and that's where I think things went on its head with Tyrone Willingham. I don't think he was necessarily a terrible coach. He wasn't good, but he didn't like to recruit either.
No.
He was known not recruiting.
I mean, I checked recruiting under him. I don't even think they were in the top 30 at one of those years.
No, they were in the 40s. The 40s for Notre Dame. That's insane.
Yeah, because he had a really good class in 03. That was with Brady Quinn.
Yep.
God, who was the other?
Samardzija.
And then even the 2002 class before he got there was decent.
Yeah, Darius Walker would have been in there.
But his 04, I think it was his 04 class. When they became juniors or even like redshirt sophomores in 2007, that's when we had that awful year.
Oh, it's so bad.
And that was – because I thought he was a decent X's and O's guys, but I don't think he recruited the position, like the, quarterback, wide receiver, in the trenches type of players, I don't think he recruited well at all. No. He wasn't a teacher. You got to be a good teacher as well once you get to that level.
If you look at, he wasn't the typical prospect either. Like, he had a couple good seasons, not even at one great. Usually you pull these MAC guys, or the guy that's taking the next step just has this phenomenal year. He never had that at Stanford. No. I think he took them to a Rose Bowl, but they had 4 losses or something that year. Because it was one of them weird years where everybody's kind of losing and somebody has to make it.
Right.
And he didn't have that, oh my God, you're 12-1 and you almost played for a title. No, he looking back, it's that hire was horrendous. Yeah. It gets worse every year.
Well, it was their second choice too, because O'Leary was the main choice and then him.
Correct.
But to me, Weiss, I thought, he could recruit, the wide receiver, the running back.
He didn't want anything to do with he did not want anything to do with defense. If you remember, he would talk about how he would just let Corin Brown just do his thing. And that was pretty much it.
And he didn't develop players. By the time he got there, Brady Quinn was a junior, Samardzija was a junior. So those first 2 years, yes, he went, 10-2 both of those years, but got killed in 2 bowls.
Yep.
But I said X's and O's, I thought he was okay. But it's
crazy to think that the best coach we had in that whole 3-coach span was Bob Davie. He was probably the most complete coach of the 3.
And supposedly he recruited well. He just couldn't put it all.
But he wasn't an offensive guy at all. No. You look back on those teams, they weren't offensive. But they weren't terrible either. They were just kind of, we're not winning a title with this guy.
But he would have a solid year, then a step back year. Mm-hmm. Solid year, step back year. But like I said, that whole term, BK PTSD.
Some people think he's still on the staff, I think.
I'm
a fan. I'm actually a fan of Brian Kelly. And I'm so sick and tired of hearing about him. It's guys, he's gone. You know that, right?
He's how do you think, though, Logan Diggs, did that kind of shock you? I always heard he was homesick anyway, and he wanted to get back.
That was another thing that was on my list. I actually crossed it off before we went live is I have faith in the recruiting the running backs and this offensive line, but man, I think that's a big hit is losing Logan Diggs. Because Estime, I like Estime, but he needs a B. He needs a Robin, or he needs to be Robin and somebody else Batman, because
they got Jadarian Price if he stays healthy.
Unproven. That's my point.
I saw him in a spring game. I know it was a spring game, but he's shifty. He's really good.
But
and then Jabron Payne.
Yeah, I like him a lot.
The Love kid, is it Jeremiah Love or?
Yeah.
I would like him had he stayed. I would have loved it, but it seemed like he was always, from what I heard, homesick, and it was just a matter of time before.
I hadn't heard that, but I could see that. Again, kids make decisions for all kinds of reasons, and if he is homesick, he's from the area, and it's familiarity with the coach too. So now you get your familiarity with the family, the coach, and Kelly probably, he brought half his guys with him to LSU. So
okay. So before I let you go, Greg, again, thank you so much for joining me. This has been really good. Really good. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Maybe we'll have you on again during the year at the halfway point.
Yes,
hopefully
sir.
6-0 and not 4-2.
I think I think if we beat Ohio State, you got to have me back on right after that week. I got to be on.
We'll eat our words.
100%
when we're wrong.
Yeah.
But anything else you want to say about this upcoming season?
I'm excited for it. This is probably the most excited I've been in a long time for a season. The older I'm getting and the busier I get, I do lose a little my fanaticism, if you will. And being on the guts, kind of going back to your Brian Kelly comment about how you wouldn't trust him for nothing. Yeah. I was going to say, if you were on the guts of a lot of this stuff, you wouldn't trust half of it.
Oh, I know, yeah. Oh, I've heard that too, yeah.
80% of these coaches, you wouldn't want to have a drink with.
Right.
And I think that honestly, not to segue too much as we're closing out here, but I think that's affected my fandom a little bit. Is and once you're on the inside of it, and you see these are just normal people, and a lot of them are not people you would like normally. It's you're not quite as much of a fan. But kind of circling back to your question is I'm counting down the days. I want to see Hartman. I'm excited to see this evolution of Freeman, to go from how I felt last year to this year. And if he is the guy, this is it. This year too. Be something, because this is the best quarterback you're going to have for at least 2 years. I know CJ Carr's coming,
but he's a freshman. He'll be freshman.
And those once in a lifetime true freshmen are just that. And I don't think he's it. I think he's going to be very good. Right. But I don't think that he's going to come in and be like, oh yeah, he's winning a Heisman as a true freshman. He's not Trevor Lawrence. This is the most excited I've been. Definitely pre-COVID, for sure.
Oh yeah, me too. But I just thought of another question, though. Obviously, the lacrosse team won a championship this year. I know it's lacrosse. You do a lot with lacrosse.
Hey, I love lacrosse, man. Absolutely.
And I will say, I won't say I'm a huge lacrosse fan, but I become a big-time Notre Dame lacrosse fan. I like watching them. Now, whether it's another team, that's another story. But to watch Notre Dame, I thought it was really exciting and all that. Do you think a team within the university to win a championship, another team can build off that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. They see that success. Now, you would like it to be, and I love lacrosse. I do. Actually, I like the women's game more than I like the men's game. I train a lot of female lacrosse players and then covering more women's than the men. And I love the intricacies of the game. I think anytime that you win a national title in anything, it helps. But it would be nice if that was a baseball World Series or a basketball title. I think that is some of the Olympic sports, they get a little I hate it. I hate it because I'm such a huge proponent of female athletics and stuff. But the general consensus is there's always some negative comment.
Right.
You look at that because the ACC won more, I think, national titles this year than any other conference, but none of them were the big ones. And it was just kind of like, you could read through the comments, so you can just imagine, when you're talking about fencing titles or lacrosse or swimming or whatever. So,
because in 2018, the girls won the basketball title here in Columbus, Ohio.
Yep.
And the next year, the football team, I know we didn't win the national title, but we went 12-0, went to the playoffs.
I mean,
I don't know if it had anything to do with, I didn't know if it had to do anything with the girls winning the title. I just think sometimes maybe another sport can propel another sport.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you're around like-minded individuals, I teach this all the time to kids I train, is like you want to surround yourself with like-minded and successful individuals, and any national title you win, it takes a certain mentality, and people see that and they're like, oh, I want to be that. I want to do that. Hey, we need to pick up our game. So, I don't think it hurts by any stretch. That's for sure.
And I think, too, I know you said you're excited for this season. I'm excited. But I'm excited for men's basketball, too, men's and women's. I think the women still need some height. I don't think Coach Ivy went to the portal too well to get some, power forward centers, because I think you need that to win a title. But we shall see. Mm-hmm. But to me, I think the men will probably have a losing record this year because there's so many new parts. But just with Coach Shrewsbury coming in to take over a program that, let's just face it, was dead, it needed a jump start.
Probably 5 years ago, to be honest.
Really. Yeah. I mean, it needed the paddles when someone's having a cardiac arrest.
Yeah.
I think he's the guy
minimum
for
two.
That.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we got to give him at least, 2 to 3 years.
Oh, I'm excited. That's a great hire. That's a very non-Notre Dame hire because it's somebody I actually wanted.
Right. Really. Yeah. I know. Yeah. It's like it seems like they kind of emptied the bank a little too to get him.
Yeah.
From what I'm hearing. But I think too, just with that hire, a lot of new players, it's pretty much an entirely new team. I know there's Tony Sanders is back, but he never really played with Coach Bray the last 3 years. Mm-hmm. Matt Zona's back, and the kid, I can never pronounce his name. I think it's Kaznesny, Jared Kaznesny.
Yeah.
So really those guys, yes, they've been a part of the program the last 2-3 years, but they haven't played. So they're pretty much new as well.
You got to give it. Honestly, not being a basketball school, not being named Duke or North Carolina, in my opinion, he has 5 years at minimum.
Right.
Like, sign him up, let him do his thing. I mean, it can't get worse. It really can't. And he has nothing. I mean, there's almost more people in this room right now than were on the team a couple months
I think there's
ago.
10. I think there's 10 players right now.
Yeah, that's crazy for a D1 program in the ACC.
And I think that's one walk-on too.
Okay.
Or 10 plus one walk-on, so 11.
Not much.
It could be 9 and 1. I'm not sure, but I know it's pretty much just 10 players.
Mm-hmm.
And the girls, I think there's talent around there, but there's just no inside presence, and you got to have that.
They're not going to compete for a title this year anyway. I mean, LSU and Iowa are going to be back, in my opinion.
And not to get too much off subject, but I think girls basketball in general this year for NCAA, there's going to be a lot of hype. The way it ended last year with 100%. LSU and Iowa, Caitlin Clark's back.
Yep.
I just think that this is the most people have talked about women's college basketball.
And don't forget about another star coming back too, is Paige Beckers. Paige is back for UConn. I mean, she was as big a star as Caitlin Clark before she's been ouchy a lot in her career. But a lot of people are excited about her coming back. So you got Paige, you got everything going on at the Angel and LSU, and they won the title, and they're just getting more talent. They got the girl from Louisville.
Right.
And then you have, of course, Kate Clark. I mean, this is as hot as women's basketball's probably ever been.
Yeah. who's it? Haley. Yeah, I was shocked. She went from Louisville to LSU.
Yeah, and I thought she was going to go to Iowa. Iowa to me made the most sense, but also she's a girl that needs a ball in her hand.
Yeah.
And so does Kate Clark.
Right. That'd been a lot of too much.
And they almost play the same. Yeah, they almost play the same position. And if you watch Iowa, there's no offense. It's throw the ball to Kate, throw it up.
Yeah.
Where, Kim Mulkey, say what you will, she's crazy, but she's very good.
Yeah,
and Angel Reese plays a whole different position than this girl from Louisville.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where you got to go with that. Is it probably does kind of make more sense.
So, but yeah, I'm not just for football, men's and women's basketball, and maybe lacrosse is good again.
Yep. And the girls should be really good in lacrosse this year too. They're bringing back all 6 of their seniors that have eligibility. Nice. Casey Choma, who is one of my personal favorite players for female lacrosse players. She's part of Team USA. She's back for her COVID year. So, they should be really good again this year.
Cool. Well, again, Greg, thank you so much. I want to close it out here. Stay on for a little bit so we can say our goodbyes after I end this here. But everybody, thank you so much for joining us today for our 2023 Notre Dame football preview. It's probably the first one out there. Hope you enjoyed it. Just to review, both Greg and I are predicting 10-2. But a New Year's 6 bowl win. And hopefully we're wrong. Hopefully we're not 10-2. Hopefully we're 12-0, 11-1, going to the playoffs and win that first national title in 35 years. I'll believe it when I see it. We're going to try to stay as positive as we can. But years and ever since our PTSD being post-1993, David Gordon kicking that kick, that was a heartbreaker. I was 18 years old and pretty much a lot of just bad luck since then. We've had some good moments, but we really haven't come close since that moment. So hopefully that's different this year. We shall see. But thank you so much for joining me for episode 89. And as always, go Irish.
Go Irish.